Happy Veterans Day. Thank you to all those who have served. We're going live now.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me.
What is going on, everybody? It's lunchtime. Happy Veterans Day. I want to thank everybody who has or is serving in the service for us in this country. I appreciate you so much. Lately, because I'm older, my daughter has moved away. There's not as much going on. I have been looking for ways to kind of give back. And I found a site where I can write letters, cards, and stuff to people in the service. And I've been doing that for the last couple months, just in my free time, taking a couple minutes to send birthday cards and holiday cards. We've even sent care packages overseas to those deployed. It's been a way that we can give back. I really do appreciate everybody who has served. It was a way that I found that was easy for my wife and I to kind of get involved a little bit. So that's been really awesome. And just a way to kind of fill my day a little more productively, I guess. So yeah, fun stuff. I heard Sevan say that I was going to talk about Tyson Bagent being on his show as he was going off the air today. It's hard for me not to talk about Tyson Bagent because I am such a big Chicago Bears fan. And when he's on, you learn so much about what kind of goes on behind the scenes. It's very much like people that dive into Sevan's behind the scenes work, right? They want to see what's going on behind the scenes at the games, understand why they do it, understand where the athlete's mindset is, all those kinds of things. And when Tyson comes on there, he gives us a peek into things that I've never, ever seen done by the NFL itself. Because Tyson is so frank and so honest about what he talks about. The whole mental health aspect that he was talking about today, where when they show up, you're so overwhelmed and you are met in your rookie year by mental health experts saying, hey, these are the things we see. We know you're going to be overwhelmed. We're here to help. That stuff just blows my mind. A couple of years ago, I had James Townsend on, who was signed by the Bears as well. And he ended up walking away from the NFL because of stresses that were going on in his life. And I'm just wondering, I'd love to talk to him again about maybe those programs weren't in place back then that they are now. And so those are the things that I love to hear from Tyson. I just love to, because that is my favorite team in the world of all sports, and to get a peek in behind the curtain of that team is just one of my favorite things to watch. So yeah, I was tuned in as soon as he came on today and watched the whole thing and really, really enjoyed it. And Jay Birch says, yeah, especially with the recent death of the Cowboys player. Yeah, the details of that are wild. That he was in a police chase and then took his own life. And he's so young. Like, what? You just don't know what pressures people are under, right? So yeah, it's good to know. And I don't know if it's just the Bears that have that approach when the rookies show up, to have mental health experts greet them as they come in the building, or if that's an NFL wide thing. It'd be interesting to know. But Tyson's the only one that really gives us that peek into what happens behind the scenes. And maybe there's other players on other shows that I just don't know about. But Tyson not only goes on with Sevan, but he goes on podcasts around the Chicago Bear community a lot. He's very, very well liked, loved by the Chicago Bear community and the media there because he's so accessible and so upfront and honest about everything that he's on podcasts around the Bears all the time. And so it's just wild that that we get that peak. So that's all I wanted to say. And I wasn't on yesterday. The Bears, what they've been doing this season, the vibes of a 6-3 season are so much different than where I've been in the past with this team. It's been a long time since 2018 was the last real run we made at the playoffs. We made it in 2020, but it was like backdoor our way in. I almost don't know how to act on a Sunday anymore with the Bears because I'm so used to just kind of anticipating losing. And even Sunday when they were down by 10 points, I thought, yeah, this is over. We're probably done. And to come back in the last 4 minutes of the game, score 2 touchdowns and win the game was remarkable and something I'm definitely not used to or acclimated to at all. It's really hard for me to expect that, but it is fun. So there's that, and that's probably all I'm going to talk about there. But yeah. So is anybody doing Chad today? It is Veterans Day. I know it has become typically the big day to do 1,000 step-ups for time. I have so much going on today. Last year I did half Chad from where I was physically. That's what I could do. So I don't know. I maybe I'll do it today. Maybe I'll do part of it today. I actually have to end the show a little bit early today. I have a mechanic coming to work on my one car, and I have a business meeting at 1. So I've got to do that. Corey Leonard done Chad once in 2023. I'm good unless they program it at a comp I'm in. Vicky, coach is programming it for this weekend. Okay. Yeah, it's tough being in the middle of the week. You'd hate to do Chad and then try to go back to work tomorrow and walk around an office or something like that. So John George, my gym programmed it. My knees very clearly said not a chance if you want to participate the rest of the week. So squat clean ladder instead. Jay Birch, probably not this year. I don't have my step stool. Eric Mackey, partner version today. That's a good idea. Partner it up. Do that. Mike DeVito, hardest part of Chad is keeping count. Ain't that the truth? Yeah, it's funny. Jay Birch last year, if I remember, had a step stool. The thing was really narrow at the top. Can't believe he was doing that. He deserves extra credit for degree of difficulty for sure on that. Last year I just did the stairs in my basement, and I just kept going up and down off of the stairs. Most of them I tried to do 2 steps at a time. Some I just did 1, but that's just where I was with my fitness last year. But we'll see. I don't really have anything on the docket till I get through these appointments. Corlando, keeping count was terrible. It's way more of a mental test than anything else. Yeah, I can see that. Vicky putting it out there. If anybody wants to do their version via video together this weekend, let me know. Sounds fun. Probably the hardest part is doing it alone. I think it would be better at a gym where you can hang out with others and kind of get through it. So Uh, the military doesn't have the same status as it seems to have in the US. Always weird if they program it in my box. Mike DeVito, never chat alone. Always use the buddy system. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. The one topic I did want to talk about today a little bit is if you were with us on the Sunday show at all, I talked about watching the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions that happened over the weekend and how much I enjoyed some of the performances with Salt and Peppa and In Vogue coming out. The Soundgarden piece was good. The White Stripes piece was good. The Outcast piece was really good. Other than Doja Cat, she ruined Miss Jackson pretty bad. That performance, but the rest of it was really good. And I have not seen the end of it, which is Cyndi Lauper and Joe Cocker. But the one thing that kind of came up with me watching it is, and the thing that I hate the most about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is they wait so long to induct people that the bands can't even perform. Because like Bad Company, they had one surviving member at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, the drummer. The lead singer's health didn't allow him to travel, so he came in by video, and the rest of them have all passed on at this point. So they're inducted into the Hall of Fame, but it's like posthumously. And what fun is that? You don't get to see them perform. And the tributes are great. Like seeing other people perform their songs and how well they do is fun, but it's not the same as getting a chance to see them one last time as they kind of get into the Hall of Fame. And then you have people like Outkast with Big Boy and Andre 3000 being in a beef, refusing to perform together. So Big Boy performed with celebrities, and you get kind of a mix of the real person and some celebrities, and it was good. It was great. I love Outkast. I think what they brought to music in the early 2000s of Southern hip hop was awesome. And but it's sad that Andre 3000 refused to perform. Jody, Lauper Cocker sounds brutal, both so old. No offense to them, but they are beyond their performing years. I agree. I have not liked performances by Cyndi Lauper in a few years. Again, it's another thing where she was big in the 80s. It's taken this long to get her into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And wouldn't it have been better when she was vocally more sound? Joe Cocker was famous in the 70s, and now he's finally getting in. And I don't even know if he's still alive. I need to watch the end of the show to even see. I love old Joe Cocker. He's on my workout mix a lot. But I don't know if even if he is alive, that the performance now would be that great. Vicky, agree, Jody. Cyndi performed at New York Rock in Rock and Eve every few years ago, and it was rough. Yeah, she has not been great the last few times I've seen her on anything. So I'm not sure I'm looking forward to that. Probably why I haven't got to the end of it. I saw everybody. I saw Soundgarden. I saw the White Stripes. I saw Outkast. I saw Salt and Peppa and Bad Company. Those are the ones I really, really wanted to see. Sorry about that. Cocker is one of the best at doing covers of already great songs and making them better. I think he's doing well. Feeling All Right is my favorite song by him. He's known for Little Help with My Friends, Little Help from My Friends. But yeah, he's great. Great. But what this did is it actually created a comment on YouTube that I wanted to kind of discuss today. And maybe we'll bring it up again this Sunday with the ladies. And so here I'm going to share my screen. Craig Pasley put into the comment section, Scott, I just thought about a show topic based on this discussion about the Rock Music Hall of Fame, how some bands and singers do not become inducted members until later in life or past life. Show topic. If CrossFit started an elite athlete, including teen, masters, team, individual, Hall of Fame, and only one or two male or one or two female were allowed acceptance each year, how long would it be before some like Dallin, team multiple champion, Jason, and Laura were inducted? And I started to think about this. If only one or two members from each side, men and women, were accepted at a time, how long would it take? I think it really varies with each person you're talking about. One. Two, I think that CrossFit is so young that we don't really know the eras yet. Like when you talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame, there are like the pitching eras, there are the steroid era, there is the hitting era. And then you can kind of tabulate how a person has done in each era. I think CrossFit's still in a place in establishing those. And so it's really hard to then judge who should or who should not be in after you get past the obvious ones. Right? There are like a handful of obvious people that need to be in immediately if there was a Hall of Fame. And then it is like, how did they do against their eras? Because you could look at like a Graham Holmberg, who in his era, the level of athlete wasn't what it has been for Dallin and Jason. So Jason's a games champion, elite division. Graham's a games champion, elite division. How do you compare the two at this point? Because I think time will tell us that we're in a golden era of the athlete in CrossFit right now, with as deep as the men's field is. And so I think a championship during this time in a few years is going to look way more impressive than a championship that like Jason Khalipa had or Graham Holmberg had. And I think at this point, we're just looking at them as OG legends, and we hold them to this highest esteem if we've been around the sport for a long time. And they were influencers. And like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has that. You can go in as a performer or you can go in as an influencer. Salt and Pepper and Outkast went in as influencers, not as performers, where like Bad Company, Soundgarden went in as performers. They looked at Salt and Pepper and Outkast as more like they created a genre. The female rap thing, Salt and Pepper were the first to kind of break that barrier down, where Outkast were the first Southern hip hop rap that kind of came around. So like I would look at like Graham and Khalipa as influencers. They kind of started the sport and they made it popular. And then now you look at today's era and now it's about the performance on the floor. And so it's an interesting debate and an interesting conversation for sure. And I think when you look at the women's side, it's a whole lot different, because I don't think it's quite as deep, and it's had and I don't think it's had the, how do I say this? There's been a lot of people like dropping out of the women's side, so their careers are not as long. So I think it gets a lot more complicated on that side. So, David Reed, a champion is a champion. I don't agree. I don't agree. But it's all the things that have to be factored in, right? When did they do it? Who were they up against? Who did they compete against? Jody, inducted as influencers, not musicians. That's the way the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame breaks it down. They have people who, and there are people that get in that influencer category that may be a bass player that was a session musician that affected a lot of people that you may never have heard of, but they influenced how bass was played. And so it's a different thing with, and music is not, you don't have winners and losers in music. You just put out stuff and people either like it or they don't. It's much more subjective. So it lends itself more to some things like that. Where CrossFit, it's just so young that we don't know enough yet. David coming in strong with a you're 100% wrong. You were saying that Bill Russell is not as good as LeBron. Insane take. That's maybe not the comparison I would make. In my head, I was thinking maybe the opposite, like a champion in baseball in the 1920s when there were only 8 to 10 teams meant more than a championship in the 2000s where there's 30 teams and the talent is spread out over way more teams. And so that's where I would say there's a difference in champion to champion. And I think basketball has been good in the United States for a very long time. There's also, there was a period of time where sports didn't allow people of different ethnicities and colors into the sport. And how do you judge that when the best weren't allowed to play? So that would not include a Bill Russell era. And there's debates as to the player. Bill Russell was on a great team that won a lot of championships, but individually, did he ever have to carry that team? There's so many factors into this, David Reed. You can't make a blanket statement that a champion is a champion. There's arguments in the 1990s that the Houston Rockets were not the champions that the Chicago Bulls were because Michael Jordan stepped away. Wayne Short, you can't judge an athlete against a standard that didn't exist when they played. David Reed, Graham won the games. He's on that mountain with all the rest. In fact, I would say it was harder since that era had jobs. Every argument you make, I can make a counter argument. Like Jason Khalipa didn't have to qualify to go to the games. He just had to sign up. It was a 3-event games back then. Like, it's just different. It's different. I think the pressure today is more. So I think in a couple years, we're going to look at the era we're in now as if you can win a championship during this time with this many great athletes, it's going to hold up more than it did than some of the older eras. The beauty of sports, we can all pass judgment. Well, that's why sports is great, because everybody has a different opinion, and that's why we have shows like this to be able to talk this out. And that's the beauty of it. Tristan, the era was absolutely not harder because they had jobs. The fact you can make the games with a job proves it was easier. And David said, we can agree to disagree. Yeah, and that's the beauty of this. We can debate this out. So the examples that Craig gave in the comment were Dallin, Jason, and Laura. I think at this point where we're at today, Laura has had the longest career of those in the elite division. She has run from 2018 to today, and she has stood on the podium a handful of times with one championship. And I would argue she's the second greatest champion, the second greatest CrossFit female athlete that we have seen. That's very debatable against Annie. The numbers are really close, but I would say that those two are there. Sevan, champions had to fight so hard. It's crazy what it takes to win every game since 2018 or 2008. I don't disagree with that statement. I do think it's you still have to have a champion's mindset to win. But I think when you're doing a comparison as to who is the greatest of all time, you have to look at the era that they did it in and who the competition was at the time. So then when you look at Dallin and Jason, I think that their numbers are going to look better in a few years. One, they're very new to the sport. Jason was 2021 when he first qualified for the games. Dallin was 2022 when he first made it to the games. So yeah, I think that you're going to see that in a few years as their careers go on a little bit longer. Sevan, what Miko did in 2009 was superhuman. I think we're debating two separate things, Sevan. I think we're looking at who the greatest of all time was in my conversation. I don't disagree that people winning the games in 2007 through 2012 weren't superhuman or didn't do amazing things. I do think they did that. But when you're comparing the greatest of all time, you have to look at the era in which they did it and who they did it against. It's the only way we can truly compare. Because in prime Matt Frazier never went against in prime Rich Froning. So that leaves this debate that's been hanging out there for years. In prime Graham never went up against in prime Jason Hopper. So we're never going to know what that was if all things being equal. So you have to look at other factors around it to see who you think might have been better. Corey Leonard, a lot of those old games workouts don't hold up today because Dave Mosley, were still figuring out how to test for the fittest. As the athletes evolve, so did the tests. But I could also argue, this is where it's crazy, Corey. I could also argue against the fact that they were harder back then because they didn't understand it as much. As they were trying to figure it out, they may have overprogrammed something and not realized they had done it. And I think it was probably more unknown and unknowable back then because there wasn't 20 years of history to look at and say, there wasn't 20 years of history to try to figure out a pattern or a piece. Back in the early days, they truly did not know what was coming at them. They had no idea. Kenneth is asking, who is the best to never win one? I'd have to think about that. There's a lot of candidates for that. Dallin has done more than Laura. That I disagree with. Dallin is a 3-time champ in the teen division. And the teen division in the men's side, to me, has never really proven to be like the incubator for the elite division, like the female side has. A lot of the females who have done well on the teen side have moved into the elite division kind of seamlessly. Dallin is really the only male who has done that with some success so far. Now we have to wait on Ty. We have to wait on Nate Ackerman and see what those guys do. But the next person I would say that it was as popular, was good as Dallin was Angelo DeChico, who never saw the individual success in the elite division that Dallin even has at this point. So Sprague and Austin have done it well too. Did Austin do well in the teen division? Justin never made it in the teen division. He never qualified. So, so yeah. Sorry. My mechanic is texting me and he just said he's going to be delayed so I could stay on a little bit longer. Sorry. Vicky, I agree. Sevan Dallin contributes to the space. She doesn't. Okay, that's another factor into Hall of Fame. If you're talking Hall of Fame and greatest ever, are we talking about what happens off the floor? Or are we talking about what happens on the floor? There are some sports when they make their Hall of Fame, the off the floor stuff does not matter. O.J. Simpson is still in the Football Hall of Fame. So that's a criteria that would have to be discussed. This is a great example, Mark Phillips. I thought Nick Palladino was going to be the next Frazier. Oh, well, there's a lot of those. Dre Strom he killed the teen division. Nick Palladino, they never amounted to much on the individual side at all. Clando 20, would you or should you look at non-CrossFit events when you make this list? I think you can look at those events, but I think it's become obvious in the last 12 months that the games matter way more than anything else. Your performance in the game season matters more. Your performance at the CrossFit Games matters more. It's what everybody is striving for. And how you compare to your peers at the highest level is what matters most. And the CrossFit Games are the highest level. And there's a reason fewer men haven't made the leap. So I think it was a great question that Craig posed, and really with a lot of thought. We've done shows where we've picked like who would be the initial 4 or 5 to get into a Hall of Fame. And I think that's a lot easier than looking at who's currently out there and how do they compare against the legends. Because I would say the golden era before what we're seeing now on the men's division was that like 2009 to 2014. I think that's where the growth of the sport was the biggest. That's when the people did the most for CrossFit while competing at the CrossFit Games. And that was like the golden era. But I think you're getting like almost a second version of that now with Dallin and Justin and Jason and James doing the podcast, letting you in, seeing behind the curtain. Justin doing the affiliate tour. Justin going to military bases with Dave. Like you're starting to see them do the things that the guys in the golden era that we call that 2009 to 2014 era, they're starting to do those things. James doing open announcements from the Air Force Base. All of those things were things you saw Rich and Dan Bailey and Graham and all those guys do back in Matt Chan, all those guys do back in that golden era of CrossFit. And so I think if we give that a few more years, that the look at who is the best all time is going to vary, because these guys have learned what Colton has done for the sport, how to expand it. The little engine that could, the person that everybody doubted, the person that nobody thought could make it to the games, and what he's done for the underdog. We are in a true new era. Chan is not Hall of Fame. I agree. He is not a Hall of Famer, but he was part of that golden era where the athletes were red shirts. They were traveling the world, preaching the gospel of CrossFit. They were doing everything they could to grow not only the sport, but the methodology. So that's why I brought him up. Aaron Fraser, that's a good name for now. The era of machines. That's where we're at. Power output machines. That's the era we're in now. Hopefully we can change that narrative. And I don't want to just put like, I think we're in a new golden era with the men. I think there's a group of women doing the same thing. I think Ariel Lowen is trying to do that. I think like the Lucy Campbells are trying to do that. I think they're starting to see the beauty of connecting with the community as much as the men are as well. So, but I think it's a great discussion to have. We'll probably bring it up again on Sunday Night CrossFit because I'd like to get Jamie and Carolyn's perspective on this, just to kind of see if how they view this as well. And I love the input you guys gave today. But I've got Lowen is connecting. I see what you're saying. She's connecting with the community, but she's not if she opens that affiliate, then I think that's a step in the right direction. Once they finish that barn gym, and if that becomes a true open to the public affiliate, then I think that is the step in the right direction. Jody says, good topic for sure. Sevan says, disconnecting. How so, Sevan? Why? I don't understand the comment. Kenneth DeLab says she's connecting with a niche corner of the community. If that's true, Kenneth, a niche of a niche is not awesome. Aaron Fraser, she worked out in an affiliate before she moved to her gym, feeling like she left the community. Yeah, and I don't know the reason behind that. Yeah. I think truly it depends on once she finishes this gym. She has said it's going to be an affiliate. It's going to be where she coaches, and it's going to be so she will be back into the community. I think that makes a huge difference right there. David Reed, a loud niche corner who want undefined change. Want change. Okay. People's character truly shows itself during hard times. Okay. Chris Beesterfield, I don't think anybody in this chat is debating that Rich Froning would be one of the initial inductees into a Hall of Fame. I think that the top of the top and who would be the initial class of a Hall of Fame is way easier than when you get like 5, 6, 7 deep and where you go with that. Mike DeVito, yes, let's not forget the community part of it. Great or not, working out in your garage makes you different. Not saying never allowed in Hall of Fame, but it should be something to take into an account. again, it all depends on your definition of your Hall of Fame. There are sports Hall of Fames that truly only look at what happens on the competition floor. There are other sports that factor in what happens off of the competition floor. So if you're making this Hall of Fame that does not exist at this point, when you define it, you need to define this is someone who has contributed both on and off the floor for the betterment of CrossFit. And because CrossFit is more than a sport, it would make sense if I were creating a Hall of Fame, I would define it as both on and off the floor. Now, Sevan is 100% accurate with the true colors comment, and that's so wildly important. So I have feelings about that. My feeling is that people react to hard times differently. And with that should be some grace and some forgiveness. If we're talking about Lazar's death at the games, I mean, I was there. I was going through that, and it was hard. It was hard. And I honestly did not know how to react. I didn't know how to react. I stayed. I was there. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, but then there's the grieving process. And at some point, do I agree with what the PFAA did? No. Do I agree with the letter that was sent? No. All of that I do not agree with. I'd love to hear the whys and why people signed it, and I don't think anybody has ever given us that. But in that moment, in that weekend, that was a hard weekend. I made the decision to stay. I made the decision to cheer for the athletes on the floor. But I know other people didn't. And I don't know their reasonings behind that. And because of my belief system, I believe that they are afforded some grace and some forgiveness, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to hear more on that. Jordan is great. He's the greatest because he won with a fever of 103. Jordan refused to lose. Jordan wasn't about winning. He was about refusing to lose, regardless of the situation. That's why he was great. And that is Rich. I saw Rich at the 2014 regionals hacking up a lung off the floor and still going toe to toe with Panchek to get the win at that regional. Jenny, it was an emotional and reactionary demand. I don't disagree with that. But I would love to hear the individual reasonings for signing it. It's one thing to have a statement prepared by one person, but why were you the ones that signed it? And Mike DeVito, I agree with you on this point. It's not just that part of it. It went from not knowing how to react to using it as an excuse to call for Dave's removal and push their agendas. Yeah. But I don't, that's where I don't get the connection with Ariel. And maybe I just don't know enough. I've never seen her ask for Dave's removal. And so that's the part I don't know. And it may be just my own ignorance in the subject. Kenneth, that statement pisses me off every time someone says it. People have died on racetracks. People have died in other events, and the sport goes on. And I know that's cold and callous, but it just is a fact. Basketball players have died on the court. You don't hear people saying that they had to walk over Len Bias or they had to walk over Hank Gathers. That's just stupid. Sorry. All right. Well, I've got to go for a business meeting here in a second. So with that, I'm going to go. We'll pick this up tomorrow, I'm sure. Corey the Cowboy will be on with me tomorrow, and we'll hit this probably again. And then again, this is a great subject. We'll probably bring it up for Sunday night. With that, we'll see everybody next time on Lunch with the Clydesdale. Bye, guys.